This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of The Edge, Trek FM's dedicated podcast to Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Patrick Devlin, and joined with me, as always, Amy Nelson. Amy, how are you?
I am doing great. So glad to be here talking Star Trek Discovery. A lot of news has come out since San Diego Comic-Con, and just excited to get season 2 going.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to have to, but I can't wait for the new season. It looks good. I've heard mixed reviews from some of the fans, but I think they'll do a good job.
Yeah, well, we did a postcards from the Edge with the fan response. So listeners, if you haven't listened to that, you can go and see what the fans thought about it.
And we have our special guest today, and our special guest is a friend of mine from the other show, Warp 5. Brandi, Jackola, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys? Well, you already said how you are, but I'm so happy to be here.
We're happy to have you because this is one of your favorite characters.
Actually, I would say now my favorite character.
Yeah.
Awesome. So since they don't know who that is, let's introduce them to what we're going to be talking about today. We'll be talking about Tilly and her arc throughout the first season of Discovery. Would you like to give a quick rundown of her arc, Amy?
So, well, when we meet her, she's just a lowly cadet, Sylvia Tilly. And by the end, thankfully, with all of her genius, she is promoted to ensign, and she is placed in the command track because throughout the season, she reveals that she wants to one day end up being a captain. So I think it's great that we get to see her in the command track at the end of season 1. And she worked quite closely with Stamets in the engineering with the spore drive.
So now, for people who didn't read the comic book, the Stamets comic book, the Discovery Annual, it's actually mentioned in there that Stamets requested her personally and would only come aboard if he got her. They don't really go into why that is, but he does. She plays an integral role in him coming into Starfleet in the first place, which I find interesting.
Because she's super smart, guys. She was like top of her class. She's like really, really smart.
They could have given more backstory on it, though, if they wanted to.
True, but apparently they didn't want to. So
no, they were like, I need just one person. He wouldn't say the name, and then the next scene is her walking in the door. So, but I think they were trying to lead you to believe that he was asking for Culber, and he wasn't. But so that's how that happened. But all right, so what were your first impressions of Tilly, Brandi?
I thought, oh my lord, why have they made a character who is exactly like me? I really wish that they would have consulted me before stealing my personality.
Oh my goodness.
I wasn't really insulted. I just thought, okay, this is the person through whom I am going to live this entire series, because I immediately identified with her. Because I talk too much when I'm nervous. And the funny thing is that I'm an introvert, so that's a really bizarre thing. Because the whole thing is that I want to close down, but I just get word vomit and just make a fool of myself. Just ask my husband when I have met any celebrity I really love. Yep. Yep. I am good at embarrassing myself.
And so listeners, so this is to imply that Brandi is really, really smart as well, which we all know she is.
Yes.
I wouldn't say I'm Tilly level of smart. I don't know as much about science and physics as she does. However, if I applied myself, I could get there.
Yeah.
So basically, I loved her immediately.
Nice. And what were your first impressions, Amy?
I thought she was interesting. I'm not on the love level as Brandi is. I think she's a great character. I think she plays well with Burnham and sort of that opposite that they have. And I really like the relationship because she is able to teach Burnham things and Burnham is able to teach her things, about command. And, Tilly gets to help Burnham with some interactions, which I think is funny. I really like, again, how much she loves science. And, she does drop the F-bomb because it's so cool. And I think there has been some criticism that she's like the comedic relief. And I disagree with that because I think that's her personality. And not everyone's going to be boring humdrum. I'm going to be an officer and I'm going to be on a starship and do my job exactly the way that is carved out. I think she brings her own personality and I just accept her personality for what it is and rejoice in it because it's so awesome.
Great. So my initial thoughts were, I really enjoyed the character in the beginning. Like when she was talking to, Burnham, and she's like, oh, the only other female Michael I know of is yeah, and she realized she was talking to that female Michael, and I do think she was used a little bit for comic relief. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a negative necessarily, but as we'll get to at some point, at the end of the season, I hate the way they wrote her. The very last episode, I just hated the way they used her, and I think because they made her too much comic relief in that episode, but otherwise I loved her. Love's probably a strong word, but I really, really liked her character through the whole season. And leading up to that, I felt like this is a character I could really start to love. And then that last episode hit, so I'm going to need next season to figure out really how I feel about her in totality. But the fact that she is so willing to befriend Michael, and the fact that the way she is, and the way when she gets nervous, she talks too much. I like those aspects because we don't see that a lot. And let's be real, there's going to be a lot of people probably in Starfleet that are like that. She's not going to be the only one, and we've never seen one like her. So it brings a realness to the crew that I think we haven't seen before.
Yeah, and one thing that, as you were talking, really reminded me, like, I think that when, she meets Burnham and she's like, oh, the only one I know is a mutineer. You're not her. Ha, 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 And Tilly goes through, I think, which is a total natural response of, oh my gosh, I can't be seen with you. And so in engineering, she's like, this station is reserved. You find somewhere else to go, and she's a little bit concerned with, now she's rooming with her. Are people going to think that she's hanging out with this mutineer and stuff? But then she sort of snaps out of it and was like, screw it, she's going to be my friend, and, makes that transition within herself to self-correct and say, how am I treating Michael Burnham? And she changes it. And I think that is excellent character on her part.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a theme that we're seeing in Discovery, right? Like we talked about this when I wasn't here for Culber, unfortunately, but I was here for Stamets. And we talked about how Culber sees Stamets for who he is and not what people say, which is similar to what's going on with Tilly and Burnham. She sees Burnham for who Burnham is, not the mutineer, but who her personality is. And that's what she's drawn to be a friend with, because she sees her as a good person, even if she made mistakes in the past. Or even perceived mistakes. Some people would even say that it wasn't a mistake what Burnham did.
Right.
It just failed.
Well, and I think, she's only heard the stories. And so meeting the actual person and getting to know her, aside from the stories that I'm sure have been exaggerated and, pumped up and demonized, I think she makes a really good self-correction in her actions and behavior towards Burnham.
Yeah, I think it's a great point.
Yeah, I feel like Tilly is the kind of person, I may be projecting my own things onto her, but she's the kind of person that once she spent a bit of time with someone, she knows what kind of person that someone is. And so she draws people to her that are good people. And she's also very without pretense when it comes to meeting new people as a general rule. And she's she's somebody that will bring a crew together, that will bring a group together without forcing anyone. They'll just all be drawn in. She'll draw in one and that person draws in one. And then all of a sudden everybody is working together around her. She promotes a community, I guess is the right word.
Yeah, I agree. And as you were talking, I was thinking about her, how she just sort of pulls and builds a relationship with Stamets. You know, here Stamets is her senior officer and basically her boss. And yet she's able to talk to him on a more personal level and help him personally, as well as her position in engineering.
All hail Tilly. Sorry.
So before we get too deep, I'd like to talk about her social awkwardness and the fact that she does, like, when she gets nervous, she does end up, spewing out all kinds of words that kind of just make up word soup for her. What do you think of this as a character trait for her, Brandi?
Well, it's something that she can't control, and just judging by small things that she has said, it's something that has been sort of bred into her so that she doesn't know what to do when someone, with social interactions. Because at one point she says that the only time her mother ever spoke to her was to criticize her hair. So that says so much in that one little sentence about what her life was like up to this point. She has never had the normal social interactions that other people have. And she's obviously a very emotional person. She loves feeling feelings. And so she doesn't know how to filter. She's never learned that skill. And so it doesn't bother me. I think it's actually a wonderful thing to see because Starfleet is helping her grow into the person she's going to be. And she knows who is that person she wants to be. And that's why she's continuing with this. She seems, to some, I'm sure, completely unsuited to be in Starfleet, but I disagree completely. Starfleet needs more people like Sylvia Tilly.
Yeah, and when I think about her nervousness and, especially that time where she's talking and Michael's like, Tilly, less words, and so she just sort of, calms down, thinks about what she needs to say, and then just say it without all the ramblings. I sort of wonder, I'm like, Burnham's trying to, again, put her in this box, I guess. Would you go that far? Or do you think it's just a way to help her speak better?
That is an interesting point. I think at first, Michael may be trying to put her in that box. Michael quickly learns later on that doesn't work, that she was doing something wrong. And that all happens in the episode. Oh my heavens, I'm having such a brain pain today.
The one where they're jogging and then
Yes.
she's like, you do things your way.
Yeah, and she comes to the end of it and she says, I gave you bad advice.
Yes.
There are many paths to the captain's chair. You do it your way. Until he says, I am, and just keeps going.
Uh-huh.
So that does end pretty quickly, but I do feel like at that point that Michael is trying to put her in a bit of a box, but also in her mind, she's grooming her.
Right.
So that she'll be a good officer. Mm-hmm. That's what Michael feels like she's doing. It's not done with any malice or contempt.
Right. So what I was going to say is I think, yes, she was shoving her in a box, but like Brandi said, I don't think she was doing it. She wasn't trying to be negative.
No.
She was trying to help her reach her goals. And the only way Michael knows how to do it is this way.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. And the fact that at the end of that scene when she goes, oh, I am, and just keeps jogging, shows that I can take criticism, but it doesn't have to ruin my life or run my life. I can take what you say. I can take the parts of it that'll help me, and I can ignore the parts of it that won't, and I can move on and try and better myself with a culmination of advices, because not one thing is ever going to help everyone.
Right.
I'm an electrician, and I teach apprentices, and I have to take different approaches for different aspects with different apprentices, because what might be easier for me to do one way might not be easier for someone else. And that's kind of what's happening here. And Burnham is now learning that fact as well through Tilly, that you can't all just do it my way. I was raised by Vulcans. I'm going to do things differently than an very emotional human is going to do it.
Yeah.
And then you might find a human that's not as emotional. It might work for them.
Right.
But this is not the way for Tilly.
Yeah. That's so interesting you talk about that because, I'm a teacher as well. And so, sorry, listeners, you get some math here. But when I'm teaching my quadratics unit, there are so many different ways to solve a quadratic formula. And so I go through and I know what's best for me, but I'm telling you, it's only been probably, confession time. The last 8 years, I've been flexible enough to have my students solve it one way where I prefer to do it another way, but it gets the job done. And so I try and encourage my kids, well, if you like doing it this way, and so I'm learning how to teach it in a way that fits that person instead of you have to do it my way. Because when I went to high school, man, you do it the teacher way. And if you don't do it the teacher's way, then you got it wrong. And that's not the way that math is, or anything that you want in life. You need to find your path that's going to be best. Of course, there's going to be people who have gone ahead of you and have done it successfully, and they can share their insights, but you need to do what's best for you. And I appreciate that dynamic that they have there, and that she is strong enough. That's a great point, Patrick, that she is strong enough to take the criticism, decide what's best for her, and then go her path.
Yeah, because I felt when she said, I'm going to do it my way, she always intended to do it her way. Mm-hmm. Burnham was just validating that point. It was just a way of us finding out she was going to go her own route. But she was going to do that either way. So I felt that was a really strong character trait in a part of a season where they were trying to give you the negatives on her, I guess. I think they were trying to give it out as her social awkwardness was a negative at the time, but this kind of flips it on its head.
Right.
That, I can use this for my event. It doesn't have to be something that holds me back. And I felt like that was kind of what they were getting at. I could be totally wrong, but I felt like that's what they were trying to get at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will agree with you wholeheartedly.
Well, and also recognizing her social awkwardness, it reminded me of from TNG, Lieutenant Reginald Barclay. And how
also another hero.
Yes, how awesome of a character he was. He was only in, a handful of episodes, but he made such an impact on Next Gen and Star Trek overall because he was the one that was the round peg in the square box, or whatever you want to say. And it just sort of brought that to mind. And I appreciate that she had this goal to become captain, because we never really saw Barclay's goal. He made it to the Enterprise and that was it. What did he want to do after that? So I like to see, here's someone who is socially awkward, but has a goal to be better. And I think that is total Star Trek all the way.
So speaking of her goals, obviously one of her goals is going to be contributions to the engineering side of this, right? Because that's where her love is. So what contributions do you think that she contributed that made this season really what it was, Amy?
So when she's in engineering and trying to solve that problem of, how are we going to get this spore drive to jump through this mycelium network? And, she does all of her work and then realizes that the tardigrade is the answer, and that we can use this and integrate it with this engineering equipment that they pulled from the Glen. I just think huge contributions there, and supporting Stamets 100% of the way.
Yeah, I thought it was cool because Stamets says it, but what they were trying to do was create a virtual navigator, right? But now they figured out, this is the navigator.
Yeah.
And this, she helps figure this out, that we can't use a virtual navigator. We need an actual navigator. And that navigator is a tardigrade. And if we can get a tardigrade to do what we need it to do and think the way we need to think, we can travel anywhere in the universe, which I thought was really amazing. And I think it was mostly her and Burnham, wasn't it, that figured that out by realizing that, because the tardigrade was only attacking when it felt it needed to defend itself. It wasn't just violent for the sake of violence.
Yeah, and when Burnham realized, like his heart rate and stuff like that was acting differently when they made the jump, and then she puts the spores into his, container, his holding cell or whatever, So they're just sort of putting these pieces together. And I like how Tilly's like, okay, well, this can integrate with the ship's equipment.
Well, that's a really big contribution, and another really big contribution when Michael brings up the problem after that first jump of that this is causing damage to the tardigrade and can eventually kill it. And so they start working on an alternate solution, despite the fact that she's been ordered not to.
Mm-hmm.
And Tilly is totally in support of that, as well as Stamets. And so the three of them come up with a way to integrate the tardigrade DNA with a human host. And they create a biological sort of injection that can be given to a willing human so that human can become the navigator and use the spore drive in the same way as does the tardigrade, and is doing it of their own free will rather than being forced like the tardigrade. And another thing that I love is because the only reason why they were able to find out that the tardigrade was reacting to the spores is because Tilly stole some from engineering. And she was not adverse to doing that. Yes, she knew it was against regulations, but at the same time, her reaction to the distress call from Corvan 2 was my reaction to the distress call from Corvan 2. And she says, I can't help them, but I can help you. And you in turn can help make this spore drive work. And that is the only reason that they got the spore drive working, because no one else may have ever made that connection. And Michael did, but how were they going to test that theory without permission? And they wouldn't have gotten permission to just go in there with a canister of spores. Those spores are precious. So, yeah, it was Tilly's ability to see the big picture and know that, yes, she was doing something wrong, but the end result was going to be what they needed to do and was going to save lives. And so that's what she did. And she's fearless. She stays in the room when Michael deactivates the force field. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't back away. She's just a rock. Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. It's like, yeah, she, even when Burnham's like, okay, you can go, you've helped me, you've done your part. And Tilly's like, no, I'm going to stay and see this thing through.
Yep.
Yeah, which is another character trait of hers is that, I saw this as two ways. One, she was there for the science of it, right? She wanted to see it through for that. But not just that, she wanted to stand there with a friend.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and it was threefold, like you say. Friendship, scientific curiosity, wanting to save the lives of the people on Corvan 2.
Right, and now you had, the friendship part is big to me in this episode, or in this arc, because it shows that she's willing to stand there, even if something scares Michael Burnham, to the point where she's telling you to leave, it's too dangerous. I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together, and if we get caught, we're in trouble together, and if we get killed, we get killed together, but at this point, we're doing it together. And that's a big trait that I would want in someone that I was trusting this kind of information and stuff too.
Right. Well, and we had already seen in Context is for Kings when they go aboard the Glen that when it comes right down to it, Tilly can be all business because she never once expressed fear during that mission. Even when Klingons were being snatched out in front of her by something they couldn't see and ripped apart. She was all about doing her job. And all of them were scared. They didn't know what they were facing.
Right.
And she never once flinched from her duties. Never once.
Right, and like you said, it's obvious she's afraid. She has to be, right? You'd have to be a fool not to be afraid in those scenarios, but she's able to compartmentalize those feelings from the mission so that she can do her job and get out safely and get all the people that she's with out as safe as possible.
And that brings up, again, what you were saying, like, when Stamets like requested Tilly, I look at this mission specifically and I'm like, why is Tilly even on board? But she obviously had to have been requested, because of their gathering this engineering equipment and stuff from the Glen that, in my mind, that's like Stamets is like, yeah, Tilly's got to come and help me gather as much information from the Glen about this project. And because otherwise, why would you have a cadet going on this serious away mission?
Well, also, and I know it's my view is a little different because of the comic book, but it makes sense that he would request a cadet when that was the only person he demanded to work with.
Right.
In order to come into Starfleet in the first place. Now, unfortunately, they didn't give you any of that information in the show, so a lot of people didn't see it. So it does kind of beg the question, why wouldn't you take somebody else who knew something about this? But obviously, she has a special knowledge of this equipment, or the way this equipment works, at least, the theories behind it, that no one else does, even if she is just a cadet. Because it doesn't make sense that she's just smart, he would request her. There's a lot of just smart people in Starfleet that have higher rank and have been around longer. So, I mean, it could be that he wanted someone that wasn't too tainted by Starfleet at that point, because she was so new.
Yeah.
Which is why I wish they would have given us more context as to why he asked for her. Because, yes, she's brilliant, but aren't we led to believe there's a lot of brilliant people in Starfleet? So, I don't know. But seeing that he requested her now makes more sense that he requests her here. Maybe that does put a little more context as to why he requests just simply her. And I didn't think of this till right now, which is why I'm now rambling like Tilly. But it adds in the fact that she must have some kind of special knowledge of it, not just the fact that she's been working on Discovery with similar equipment for a while now.
Well, I put this to you. She was one of the few people whose DNA, where you had to breathe on the little sensor to get into the secret room. She was one of the few people that had access. So she was obviously deeply involved in every process of this spore drive.
Yeah.
And she was one of the few people that Stamets would let into that secret room.
Yeah, that trusted her.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, considering he demanded her be on the ship in the first place.
Yeah, but even without that context, it still shows in the series that she is very important to this project and has a high level of clearance, even though her actual rank is cadet.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like I said, I just wish they would have mentioned the fact that he wanted her there, because in the beginning, he treats her like garbage. I mean, early on in the series.
He treats everyone like garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. I felt, though, I did feel like he was taking extra shots at her.
I never felt that way at all.
And maybe it's just because I saw a little more interaction with him and her than other people early on, or you heard her talking about him more to Burnham than other people early on. But I did feel like he was worse to her than other people. But as we talked about in Stamets, he's kind of worse to people he likes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like, well, he's sort of a little rude to Hugh, but, they're in a relationship. And I think, because he might be a little bit more comfortable, that he's going to, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be more himself, and himself is a jerk. I mean, It is what it is, and I still like him, but that's just who he is, and he kind of keeps people around him that can accept him for who he is another point. And that's back to the first point we made about Tilly. She accepts people for who they are and not the stories of what they've heard. And this is another one of those scenarios where she's helping Stamets because he is a brilliant mind and she sees him for the mind he is, but he's a jerk.
Yeah, well, and I think that because of Tilly's insightful nature, that she knows this about him already, that the people that he likes are the ones he treats the worst. And so it doesn't bother her. She just keeps going. And that's why he keeps bringing her closer and closer in to this project, is because she's figured that out and he can trust her and he can be himself and do his work without being fettered by all the socially accepted ways to treat your subordinates.
Right. So basically, two socially inept people make a good team.
Yes. Awkward. Socially awkward. I do not like the word inept.
Okay. But it's true. They're both very socially awkward people.
Yes.
she blabbers and he just acts like more of a jerk as he gets nervous. And, you know, it's they don't portray it with him this way, but a lot of people I notice that act like him in my personal dealings, they're usually trying to cover up something they feel is inadequate about themselves. That's not how they portray him. He's just a jerk. But he does give off that same kind of cockiness that's covering up something, you know?
Well, I think he's like an expert at compartmentalizing. Like he is there to do his spore drive, period. He doesn't want to worry about a war. He doesn't want to worry about building relationships. He wants to get his project done, like dedicated, and that's the end all be all. And I think that's how it's portrayed. And so him being a quote unquote jerk is just him doing his job ultra all the time, never, continuously and just relentless. And that's all we're going to see of him. And I think Tilly recognizes, there's more to a person than just their pet project.
Yeah, and I think he sees in her, and this might be why he picked her too, that if you give her a task, she'll be the same way till it's completed.
Yep.
She can just focus on, lack of a better term, mission. Mm-hmm. She can focus on the mission and accomplish that before going back to all the other things that make up who she is.
Yes. Well, and I think that Stamets is also a jerk because he was forced into this whole thing. He was doing his research just as a scientist, and now all of a sudden he's being forced to do this on a starship for the war effort, and that was never what he wanted.
No, it was. Did you read the comic?
I have not read all of the comics.
Okay, so just real quick, he demands that she's there because his partner is going to go into Starfleet whether he likes it or not, and he decides to go along, but only if he can have Tilly. Because for years they tried to get him and his partner to come over and they wouldn't.
And then
now
they split him up and put him on different ships, and that takes him off too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the comic book they explain that off a little bit too, but this is not about him.
I know. But I'm just trying to explain why he's a jerk.
Yeah. No, I know. And they're all valid points. It's just he. The comic gives a lot of insight, and But the biggest thing I think that for this is that I take out that he wanted Tilly because of all those reasons. You know, because he didn't want to be in Starfleet. She is low ranking, right? So she's not so involved in the Starfleet way yet, right? She's a genius for the most part, and she can compartmentalize as well as he can. The problem is he compartmentalizes for too long of a period of time. He doesn't know how to come back out of it.
Yeah.
To just be himself, or maybe he would if this whole endeavor ended, but we haven't seen that yet. But moving forward, this is what I mean with her is where I started with this is I think that might be the biggest contribution she has to the engineering is that he found a rock to lean on when he can't do it or when he needs help. He always knows he can turn to Tilly, which means basically everything that gets figured out, whether she had an actual hand in it or not, is contributed somewhat back to her.
Yeah, well, and she really is there for him when they end up in the mirror universe and he is all whacked out and just not even really all in that particular dimension. And she is there for him every step of the way. And when they're saying, well, we need to do this and we need to do that, she's like, no, I am the one who is going to monitor him because I have been the one working with him the longest and I know what to look for. And she just really, takes the reins. She's like, no, me, because I know the most about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that completely fits within her character, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, her caring that much, she's the one who would sit there with Burnham when everyone would stare and snicker.
Yeah, and
she's the one that
she does that
let Tyler sit when they stared and snickered. So
yep.
So this is exactly who she is. She doesn't, like you said, Amy, the very beginning, she cared about what people might say, and then she realized, you know what? I don't really care about these people that much. At least I don't care what they think about me, about who my friends are.
Yeah, and the funny thing about Tilly, she learns that lesson really quick. It would take many, many people much more time to come to that realization.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, I don't know what their ages are supposed to be, but if at her age you didn't already know that lesson, it's probably odds are you're never going to learn it. Mm-hmm. So, but she, like you said, she learned it very quickly when she realizes, well, Burnham's not that bad. This is ridiculous. Me not to be friends with her.
Yeah. She saw someone who needed a friend, and she chose herself. So
right.
She's like, I'm going to be your friend. And that's the end of it, basically.
And she carries it through the series.
If Tilly decides she's going to be your friend, there's nothing you can do about it, guys.
Exactly.
Just accept
no,
it.
Tilly, I don't want a friend. Too bad.
Yep, exactly. That's total their relationship.
But that's her relationship with Stamets. Stamets is the guy saying, I don't want a friend. Just leave me alone. Too bad. I don't really care what you want. It's not about what you want. It's about what you need.
Yeah.
And what you need is a friend right now, so here I am.
Yep, that's Tilly.
So you brought up the mirror universe, and so she was there. She actually had two things going on in the mirror universe. She was there for Stamets, but also she had to pretend to be a murderous lunatic.
Yeah, she got there. She once she got going, she really got into that role. But that's all it was. It was a role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was done in such a Tilly way.
It's so great.
So what'd you think of her portrayal of, because we never see her
Killy.
actual mirror universe counterpart. So what'd you think of her portrayal of that character?
She starts off a bit rocky because she doesn't really know what she's doing. But just in that first conversation where she has to pretend to be Captain Killy, as she's called, she finds her flow pretty quickly, considering. And with each interaction, she becomes more and more confident at portraying this crazy person without losing anything of herself. That is the thing that impresses me the most. She is not seduced by this evil power, so to speak, of Captain Killy. She doesn't want to be Captain Killy, but she knows it is necessary to get what they need to get back to their own universe. And so she's playing a major part on both of those fronts, taking care of Stamets and dealing with Stamets, and also being Killy so that they can get into the Charon eventually, etc. She's just really pivotal in both of those things and all of the things in the mirror universe. Without Tilly, most of what happened to get them home would not have been possible. And I don't think people realize how much she mattered in that. But once she really got a hold of that role, she played it to the hilt, to the point where I think she was making other people uncomfortable. But then, once she was off screen or, off communications, right back to Tilly.
Yeah. And one thing that brings to my mind is how creative you would have to be and how her character is able to go into that role and play that part, because I look at myself and I'm like, I'm sort of, I do things by the book. I'm the teacher. I'm the rule follower. And to try and switch and to play a character as convincingly as she ends up doing it, and that would be completely opposite of what you feel. Like, I look at that, I'm like, I do not think that I could pull it off no matter how high the stakes are. Like, and I know how important it is. And so to have her do that, to me, that takes a huge amount of creativity to switch into this actor playing this role. And I'm just kudos to her, because I think like that says so much again about her character, that she is able to be so creative and out there. And that I think her social awkwardness helps, that she's used to sort of seeing things on the outside, and that she's able to play this character so well. It really is unbelievable to me. And props to her all the way.
My only thoughts about this, though, is I agree with everything you guys just said, with one slight variation to it, that once she figures out how she's supposed to be Killy, all she has to do at that point is remember to do exactly the opposite of whatever she's thinking. Her initial reaction, it wouldn't be easy to figure that out. It wouldn't be easy to realize, to be Killy, I have to do the opposite of my initial reactions. But once she gets in the groove of doing it, it's just simply react. Okay, now do the exact opposite of what I just thought. And if you could do that quick enough, which she can, then you could convince people that you are that other person. Because the hard part would be realizing how to always do the opposite and never give yourself away. But because Killy is so opposite her, it's the most opposite we've seen. We haven't even really seen it. That's the problem. But it's the most opposite we've been told in the mirror universe from the regular person. Because what we've been learning about all the other characters is they're very similar to themselves. They're just where they take a right, the mirror universe took a left and went bad. This one, it's like they're not even remotely the same person. They're exact mirrors of each other. And so figuring out that that's what you have to do to get by wouldn't be easy. But once it is, she has an easy time of getting through the second half of that part of the arc because she just has to go, oh, I want to save him. Oh, no, kill him. Just kill him. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to kill him.
Yeah, but to not have that lag time, good point.
Right, well, that's where the hard part comes in is not going, no, kill him. Like that's, you don't want to screw that part up. So I agree it's really hard, but I think that she's smart enough to figure out that all I have to do is be the opposite. And once she does that, it gets a lot easier on her because she knows, in my mind, she knows she's playing a role and the overall outcome is within her character. She's trying to help the whole ship, which is her thing. Yeah. So she just has to keep telling herself, what I do might hurt someone else, but I mean, they're all evil, so who cares? And we need to save our crew. So she kind of took a play out of the Pat book, and if it's a good person torturing a bad person, it's okay, but not the other way around.
Yeah. So do you like that we never saw Mirror Tilly?
Yes.
I do.
Okay.
I prefer it.
I do. Yeah, I think someone wrote this on the Babel conference, and they had mentioned that sometimes you see the mirror universe and it changes your opinion of the regular. And by doing it this way, we got to understand what the mirror universe Tilly would be like without seeing her and it changing our opinions of Tilly.
Yeah. Agree.
So I like that better. I mean, maybe farther down the road when we have more story about Tilly, seeing the mirror universe version wouldn't have such a profound effect on the characters themselves, but I like it the way it is to this point.
No, I agree. It's my opinion as well. I didn't feel a need to see Captain Killy. I didn't feel like, oh, well, I'd like to have the real one to compare. Didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt we got enough information that it was fine.
Yeah.
We didn't see Prime Universe Lorca either, but we kind of understand what he's about, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the same thing.
And we didn't see Mira Burnham.
Right, we understand what she's about too. So I think I would have rather seen Mira Burnham over Mira Tilly if I had to pick one, though.
Well, then you should read the Discovery Succession comics. Hint, hint.
So there's that. So, all right, but I said we get into it later, so let's get into it. I hated the way they wrote her in the last episode. I could not stand it. I don't like it. I don't like what they did to her. I felt that coming out of the Mirror Universe, she was one of the, if not the best character coming out of the Mirror Universe, and there was a ton of room for growth, and then she's getting high on a couch and passing out.
So do you feel that way because it didn't seem like there was a lot of science needed in that last episode? So it felt like to me, she was more of the friend of Burnham. You know, I got your back with the whole Tyler Volk thing. And, you know, there wasn't a lot of engineering needed in that last episode. So you felt like she was a little useless in that aspect?
Well, yeah, I felt like she was shoehorned in. Because like you said, just to carry a bomb, you don't need an engineer. You need anyone on the ship can do that, right?
No, but Michael wants someone she knows and trusts.
Yeah, I understand, but that's not who I would bring if I was doing that.
I would,
personally,
because Tilly has insights that nobody else does. So I could rationalize this till the end of time, Patrick.
Yeah, I'm sure you can, but can I finish my sentence?
Please do.
So I felt like she was shoehorned in, but it validates everyone's negative opinion that she's just there for comic relief. Because at this point, that's what she's used for. She's used for comic relief in that episode, and it ruins the arguments against that fact from people. And that's my biggest problem. Is they were doing such a great job. Look, she's always going to be funny. She's always going to be a little awkward. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But she was just shoved in for comedy in this episode, in my opinion, and it ruined how I was feeling about her leading up to this episode. Look, I've said this before about other things. They could fix this in a 5-minute conversation in the first episode next year. That's not an issue. But for this particular season, that last episode was just not that good for me. There was a lot of other bad things about it that tack on for me that add to why this bothers me so much as well, too. So it's not all just that Tilly used as comic relief, but I just had a problem with it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way they treated it. I felt like it was disrespecting the character and the actress.
Well, I can see your point because she had, so much importance, with Stamets and the spore drive and so like I said, there just wasn't a lot of engineering need in this last episode. And so all of her import wasn't used in this episode. And I can see that because her genius wasn't utilized as well.
Right. And a moment ago I said that she didn't need to carry a bomb, but again, she didn't know she was carrying a bomb. She thought she was carrying a drone.
Yeah.
But even that.
But that's the thing. Were it not for her getting high, passing out, Clint Howard trying to break into the thing, she would not have found out that it was a bomb.
Yeah, but you don't need her to do that.
No, you don't need her to do that, but she is the most likely person to fall for that because she is socially awkward and she doesn't understand the cues. And basically, she was just trying to keep from being noticed. That was her goal.
I guess. It's a stretch for me.
No, I understand.
She seems too smart.
I understand.
I understand she's socially awkward, so that makes sense. She doesn't get cues. I understand that. She seems smart enough to get up and leave before, he's going to throw her out. So just leave. She seems too smart to just smoke some stuff that some random guy is handing her.
Well, it wasn't just that it wasn't that she was going to get thrown out quietly. She was going to get thrown out extremely loudly, which was calling attention to her. And I know this is all very thin. I understand and I appreciate why you don't like this. And I do too feel that they could have done something better with this situation. And it was kind of just a way to shove Clint Howard into Orion makeup and put him in an episode, it feels like. But it does not ruin the rest of the character for me because there was so much build up to that point that I feel like this one small infraction is not enough to destroy everything that came before.
No, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that I don't like the character anymore.
I know that, but I'm saying
I just don't like the way they used her here.
I know, but all of these people who are like, well, they've ruined Tilly now. No, they haven't. And if you allow this one situation to completely change your opinion of her, well, that's on you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's true. But I do think that, and that was one of my criticisms, is these scenes give them an excuse to say that.
Yeah.
They didn't like her beforehand, most likely, many of them. And this was just an excuse to not like her. This was just an excuse to add on. But why give them the ability in the first place? Why use her for this particular part of this scene?
Because who else would they have used?
Who cares? Grab anybody to hold that stupid thing.
They wouldn't have. They wouldn't have. You're not going to pay attention to any random ensign that got thrown into it.
But you are when they end up with Clint Howard. If that's what your objective is, to get him into a scene as an Orion, you could have used anybody.
Yeah, it could have been, quote unquote, a red shirt. And, and then, they're trying to blend in. And so they are getting high. And then it doesn't mean that she's the one that, someone could have found the red shirt guy. And after it was, open, it's like, oh my gosh, it's a bomb. Come on, let's go. It could have been written so easily, just some random person carrying the suitcase. I get what you're saying.
I agree. But the way it was written, it should have been written differently because honestly, there is no way that Michael would have gone on this mission without Tilly, who has been such an integral part of this entire process. There's no way that Tilly's staying on the ship.
But she could have stayed with Michael.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that whole scene was completely unnecessary, and it should have been written in a different way to allow Tilly to discover that she was carrying a bomb instead of what they thought it was.
I see.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we agree. We've been arguing over the same point.
We agree that it was not It did not serve her character well, and it could have been done so much better and done in a different way. But again, I do not feel that it is fair to judge the character entirely on that one thing.
No, I agree. I think it's out of character. I think the whole scene is out of character.
Well,
I
don't think it's out of character. I think it's poorly written. I think that were Tilly in that actual circumstance, that's what would have happened. But it's poorly written. It's contrived. It doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think to the point that she's the one who figures out it's a bomb. I feel like the writers felt that would make everything else okay, but it didn't.
It doesn't. It could have been. That whole scene could be excised and rewritten and make the episode better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't even need her to figure out it's the bomb.
Yeah, well, I like that it was her, though.
Yeah.
I like it, but I don't need it. It doesn't do anything more for her character than she's already done for herself leading into this. I don't think she's any smarter because of it. Like, that didn't... If she would have figured it out before she was high, maybe, but to just figure it out that way, I didn't feel like it did... I just felt like the scene did a disservice to her, and I don't think it did by they're fixing it by her figuring out it's a bomb. Didn't do enough to make up for it.
Yep. So we all agree.
They're not going to write everything to my liking or your liking or anyone else's liking. So and I've said this on other podcasts. Look, we were on a Warp 5 with Jim Morehouse, and he only likes things, right? And I said to him then, I said, look, sometimes you just got to give out negatives because I talk about Star Trek every week for an hour. So I got to figure out something to talk about. Like you said, it doesn't change what I believe of the character. And that's really the main focus here, right? Is that I still really enjoy the character despite that last scene. And the last episode I just didn't like. So, my views are shaded in that way too.
Right.
Yes. Understandably. You feel your feelings, Patrick. It's fine. No opinion is wrong because it's an opinion. That's why it's called an opinion, not a fact.
Right.
Well, I can give you an opinion that's wrong. The opinion that my power company thinks is doing a good job is
okay.
wrong.
That's a fact. That's not an opinion. Because that's something that can be proven or disproven.
Yes, it can be.
That's a fact.
I just had lights flicker again.
That's a fact, honey, not an opinion.
So, okay. You had something prepared for Tilly?
I do.
Would you like to let us hear it?
I wrote a sonnet with these and thous and everything.
I am so excited. When you sort of mentioned this, I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to hear this.
Well, it's I don't even know how it really got started. I just thought, oh, there's so many wonderful things to say about Tilly. And I thought, I'm going to write an old-fashioned sonnet. Now, this may not be as long as a typical sonnet. So, and I might get emotional towards the end. I'm just warning everyone. Normally, my emotions turned up to 11. Right now, they're turned up to about 30. So, if I cry, you can judge me all you want. I don't care.
So, question for you. Like, when did this first start? You're like, okay, I'm going to write a sonnet. When was that?
Right around the time that Patrick asked me what my favorite character was, and I talked about Tilly, and he said, do you want to be an episode of The Edge where we talk about Tilly? And I said yes, and I thought, I have to do something special for this. And it didn't actually form into a sonnet until about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
But that's when I started getting the idea, and then once I started, it just kind of all fell out of me, I guess is the best way to say. And I did use a lot of help on the internet on rhyming because sometimes I can't think of rhymes. But thanks, rhyming dictionaries on the internet. So this is called, of course, Ode to Sylvia Tilly. I'm gonna get my put upon voice going here. Okay. O Sylvia, thou lady fair, thine aqua eyes and flaming hair, so full of spirit, brave of heart, such honest wisdom thou impart. Though thought naive, thy sharpest mind did even make Paul Stamets find a kinship with thee and with those who were not swayed by pretty prose. For true of speech thou always are, and even in such times bizarre, thine words would calm and soothe and cheer, releasing friends from weight of fear. Though many found thy goals inane, a captaincy, said with disdain, a mirror dark showed thee the truth of captain's rank despite thine youth. But lo, thy counterpart corrupt did not thine spirit pure disrupt. Thou took the strength, but left the hate remaining on thy pathway straight. And were it not for Tilly's nerve, ability to well observe, her friends ne'er may have won the day, and back to their own timeline stray. Sorry. O Sylvia, thou lady bright, with mind so strong and spirit light, my love so pure I give to thee, my favorite of discovery.
Oh my
Sorry.
goodness. That is beautiful. I have never, oh my gosh, heard a more beautiful sonnet. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
That really was fantastic. I mean,
Thanks. I'm sorry. I really was thinking, please don't cry during the end of this, but it just was inevitable.
I could have told you that. And I didn't even hear it yet.
Well, you just know me too well, Patrick. Thanks. So, okay, I'm fine now. I'm fine. Back to normal.
Wow.
So to the listeners, I challenge you, could there be a bigger Tilly fan out there?
Maybe. I don't know.
No.
If there is a bigger Tilly fan, I would love to meet them because we could just gush about Tilly all day long.
Yes. Oh my.
So, given that beautiful sonnet, would you like to give your final thoughts on Tilly other than the sonnet?
I have many times called Tilly my spirit animal because I identify so much with most aspects of her personality. Well, pretty much all aspects of her personality are aspects of my own personality as well. I do not have as high an intellect as she does, but that is, I think, not because I'm not naturally able to absorb such information. I just haven't trained in the same way. And I love her. She is, in my opinion, the heart of Discovery. And I couldn't ask for a better representative of the socially awkward to prove everybody wrong and everybody's preconceived notions to be wrong, that she is capable of being whatever she wants to be, including a captain, and still never losing what makes her Tilly. She is brilliant and beautiful and wonderful, and I love her.
Amy, what's your final thoughts?
Oh, I just don't know how to follow up with that. But
That's why I'm not going to say.
so I really do love podcasting about Discovery, and so grateful to be on the edge because do get to do these deep dives into the characters, and Tilly I never had a connection with her. And so, doing the research and, thinking about her character, there are so many good traits that she has, that she is so down to earth. She is the heart of Discovery. Like, with her befriending everyone and just her goals and her passion, and it doesn't override anyone else's. She's very in tune with what people need. And like you were saying, she's a very good judge of character. I appreciate her love of science and using the math. And so looking forward to that in season 2, as we all know.
The power of math, people.
Yes. High five. And so she is an integral part, even though I didn't really see it going through my first watch, but she definitely is in every scene that she's in, including the last one, in my opinion. She plays that part that is necessary, whether it be a friend to Burnham, important part in engineering. Like, she is just so important. And again, I can't say it enough. Her heart is what's making this show feel like a family, I think. I think she really is bringing people together. And so I'm really glad to be talking about Tilly and think she's a great character.
Yeah, so my final thoughts, as always, are simple. As we've been doing these character profiles, I've found new respect for a lot of the characters. With Tilly, I've always liked her. She wasn't the highest on my list, but I've always liked her. I do believe she does bring the crew together, which is an integral part of Star Trek in general. There has to be one character that kind of pulls everyone together. And even though I don't like the last scene at all, and I think that they ruined it, I don't blame her for that. I blame the writers. I don't blame the character. It is what it is. She played it well. I mean, her acting in it was well, but I just think the writers screwed it up. And doing this rewatch, I find that her contributions were actually larger than I thought initially, even though I gave her a lot of credit at first. I find that I maybe not have given her enough, which is kind of saying something, because I did enjoy her. And it wasn't like when we did Saru, I found new respect for Saru, but I didn't like Saru.
Yeah.
So it was easy to find things that maybe I didn't catch the first time and be corrected. Whereas with Tilly, it was a little harder, but I still was able to find even more things that I enjoy about her character and the traits of her character. And, when I was in grade school and stuff, I was like a nerdy kid and didn't have many friends. So I relate to that part of her psyche where she does ramble trying to get to the right words. And if you listen to me long enough on these podcasts, you'll hear I do it too. So, I enjoy her. I like her. And I'm finding a new respect for a lot of these characters through these rewatches and these character profiles. So I'm glad we're doing them. And that's really all I have to say about her in general. I think I've said everything up top.
Yeah. Well, one last thing. We didn't really talk about Mary Wiseman's portrayal of Tilly.
Oh, Mary Wiseman's a genius.
She is. Okay, so I first saw her. Did you see the Netflix original Longmire?
I have seen her part in it. I went and
yeah.
researched that because I'm like, oh, she was in Longmire. I'm going to see everything that she was in. Really love her.
Yeah, she plays completely different character. And so I'm just like, man, Mary Wiseman is awesome actor and she does a great job. And kudos to her. And I think she, and seeing the pictures with her and everyone else, all the other actors, man, she just fits in. And I'm very glad that she was chosen to portray Tilly.
Well, she is very skilled, and she has had good training, because she and Mary Chieffo were in the same drama program at Juilliard.
Oh,
interesting.
I did not know that either until recently, because I was just reading a Wikipedia page, which there's precious little information about her. I feel like there needs to be more. Mary Wiseman, would you please just write your own Wikipedia page? That would be great. But I just thought, oh, that's so wonderful. She had someone that she already knew on the show, and yet got to do very little with that same person, because Laurel and Tilly were not in a lot of scenes together. I don't know that they were in any scenes together.
I can't remember one.
I'm surprised I didn't come across that when we talked about Mary Chieffo, because I read tons of stuff and knew that. Wow. Okay. Good to know.
Fun things that you find out with Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Brandi, for coming on the edge. You want to tell the listeners where they can find you?
Yes, I will. And it has been a sincere pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to talk about Discovery on a podcast again. Can't wait till season 2 is here, and Live from the Edge is back, of which I am a co-host with Bruce Gibson. So looking forward to that. You will find me on Twitter at BrandyWine12. Brandywine is Brandi with an I. Wine spelled the traditional way, 12 is a number. I don't actually tweet a lot. I retweet a lot of Star Trek stuff and other things that I like to promote. I don't know. I'm just not as social, I guess, as I should be. No, there is no should.
There's no
I'm just
should.
Gonna back away from that.
Yeah.
I'm not as social because I'm not a super social person, but I do love podcasting. And you will also find me on Warp 5 with Sir Patrick Devlin. And also when Brandon Shea Motella gets back from his vacation, he will be back there as well. And I do a podcast with my sweet husband, Dave, called the Dark Corner Podcast, where we talk about things from a darker point of view. And we are very nerdy. The last episode we recorded, we took all 12 classes of Dungeons and Dragons and took people from fiction and or history to put into each one of those classes. It was a heck of a lot of fun. So that podcast is more liberal in its colorful metaphors. So please do not let children listen to that or listen to it publicly unless you have very liberal friends or coworkers, I guess.
And can people find you on the Babel Conference?
Sometimes. I'm not there as much as I should be.
But you are there.
I I'm there. You know, I check the comments on the posts for Warp 5 and stuff. But I do lurk a lot. I do read a lot of posts, but may not necessarily comment, but I'm there watching. I'm always watching.
Very good. Well, I'm so glad that you are back on the Edge. We've done a couple of Edge episodes together. So
Yeah. It's been too long, Amy.
I know.
We need to get on a more regular schedule of this because.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough I get to see both of you regularly.
Yes.
So. I can't complain about anything. It's been fun talking about Tilly today, but this isn't the only thing we've been discussing on the network, so here's a quick look at some of the other things you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm. The Edge, a Star Trek Discovery podcast.
It's a white uniform, and you're dealing with medical blood, all this other stuff, fluids.
Yeah.
That thing ain't gonna stay white. So in my head, they're treated that it just doesn't even stick. It just repels off it.
Earl Grey.
So Picard says he won't transfer anyone off the ship, but as a compromise, get ready for this. As a compromise, he will reassign Worf as Wesley's tutor.
I love that. Yes. Put some discipline in that boy.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
It's just like a choice you could, I don't know. I would imagine.
Man, I really like this story
You
now.
like it?
Yeah.
There's more later, but yeah, Worf as Wesley's tutor.
Melodic Treks.
And, I talked to the producers when I first did the show, and the first thing they had me do was take a combination of the dun da 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 da, the Sandy Courage wonderful horn theme, and Jerry's da 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 da, his theme for the first movie, and make a theme out of those, and combine them. So I did it electronically, and they said, good enough. And I said, look, this is not my specialty. And they said, never mind, you got it. So 18 years later, that was it.
The 602 Club.
I did definitely feel what you're saying, Matt, like it was a Bond greatest hits in that opening sequence. You've got Russians again, or supposed to be in Russia. You've got, a group of terrorists all gathering together about, all these different weapons, and you're trying to ID people. And then, we, of course, bring back in M, and then she's having to argue now with the government and the military. And then, I like that they kind of bring in Bond in a subtle way, calling him White Knight this time. That was cool. But yeah, I think otherwise it feels very familiar, but in a great way. I feel like Arnold dealing with the music, and then the actors as well taking good direction made a lot of intensity in that scene. So you don't feel like you're moving into the film slowly. They're coming at you full force, and then, Bond runs off with the plane. So I really liked it.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit that subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review. That helps other listeners to find our show.
If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and can stream and download the MP3 files from our website or grab the RSS link.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join in the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, Babel, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select The Edge. That will come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. So, Patrick, where can people find you when you're not befriending a mutineer?
Well, that's not an easy one, because I'm over on Warp 5 usually with Brandi, who's a mutineer.
Yes.
People don't know that, so keep that between us. And but other than that, they can check me out. I do pop in on the Babel Conference. I've been answering posts recently, actually, so I've been more active there. I'm also on Twitter at MagicDrop5 and as I said, Warp5. So, and that's pretty much the only place you can find me. So, Amy, where can people reach you when you're not trying to be exactly the opposite of what you normally are and you're throwing books at children?
Oh, can I please? School's going to start soon. Well, you can find me here on the network. I do a little podcast with Justin and Richard called Earl Grey, which talks about Next Generation. I am on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, and I'm currently tweeting about my Deep Space Nine watch, and I am in season 4. Oh my goodness, it's so good. And you can find me on the Babel Conference because that's my favorite place to be.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron on the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more. Available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM.
We'd also like to thank our associate producers. They are Norman Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Shoaib Mirza, Richard Rutledge, James Muldrow, and Cornelia Reutner. Thank you so much for supporting Trek FM and especially The Edge.
Thank you for listening, and join us next time to see what's happening on the edge of Federation space. That was a long way to get to an agreement.
Oh my goodness.
I think we all agreed. We just had to discuss the reasons about what we felt and what we
which
have
part
versus
we
what
agreed with.
Yeah, what we got versus what we could have had. So